Hello all, it's the Pedantic Skeptic here. I am going to make a non-response video today. It's going to be a fairly short one, but I just wanted to talk about the perverted nature of transphobes. So, let's talk about what it really means to be trans first, and then talk about why it's so perverted to be focused on somebody's trans status the way a lot of transphobes are. So, people who are trans are people who identify with a gender that does not correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth. Now, first and foremost, sex in humans and a lot of other mammals is determined by several different factors. One is chromosomes. So in us, the males are generally the heterogametic sex, so they're XY for their sex chromosomes. And the females are XX. Now, this isn't a universal across the animal kingdom, but in humans, fruit flies, and most other mammals, it is. Fruit flies are not mammals, but anyway. It's also worth noting that sex is determined by hormones. Now, one of the things that people often get wrong is they refer to testosterone as the male hormone and estrogen as the female hormone. Really, there's no hormone unique to males and no hormone unique to females. It's the ratios of hormones. Most eukaryotic multicellular organisms are this way, where ratios of hormones are very important, but just any given hormone is not useful. So, while female humans tend to have more estrogen than male humans, and male humans tend to have more testosterone than female humans, there's no male human that, for the most part, unless he has a hormone disorder, that doesn't have estrogen, and there's no female human, unless she has a hormone disorder, that doesn't have some testosterone. And it's also worth noting that until puberty, the levels of testosterone and estrogen in a male and female child are basically identical. And we'll come back to that point because there's something that I need to put out there. Gametes and gonads are also important in determining sex. So you've got chromosomes, hormones, gametes, gonads, and genitals. Those are the 5 factors that determine sex. Generally, when a baby is born, they just use the genital representation to determine if that baby is a male or female. Now, in most cases, it's accurate. So in most cases, when somebody is born with a penis, they're biologically male. And if they're born with vagina, they're biologically female. You can have people who are intersex, though. And intersex is an umbrella term for a wide range of conditions wherein the 5 factors that determine sex aren't perfectly linked up. So, for example, you can have an XY person born with a vagina instead of a penis. And that is because the Y chromosome can be deactivated or can be missing things that are important for the development of a penis in utero. So it's not as simple as, hey, you're either a male or a female. While that is the most common presentation of these different factors, it's not the only one. And that's important to note. Now, when somebody is trans, they don't identify with the sex that they were assigned at birth. So that includes every non-binary person, that includes every person who is male to female, female to male, whatever, it is what it is. Now, I don't see this as a big deal. One, the sex a person is born with is not necessarily something that I expect somebody to carry throughout their lifetime. And I don't honestly worry or concern myself with whether or not that person remains male identifying, female identifying, whatever. I just don't care. Um, you know, I treat everybody, the way I treat people isn't determined by their genitals, hormones, gonads, chromosomes, and gametes. It's determined by the content of their character. And the way that I treat them isn't dependent on how well their current gender identity aligns with the gender identity that was assigned to them when they were born. Now, I personally suspect that when people are trans, there is a portion of the brain that did not develop in a way corresponding with the sex that the physical body was assigned by their development. And to me, it doesn't matter. To me, in my opinion, if somebody is born with a penis and they go on to identify as a woman and they, want to live their life as a woman, there's nothing that is necessarily wrong with that. Okay? So here's where we get into the issue. Transphobes. I don't know why there are people who think that there is a problem with being trans. Okay? Now, first of all, think about this. You, as a transphobe, expect that somebody is going to remain identifying with the sex that was given to them based on what their genitals looked like at birth. You're, in a way, focusing on a child's genitalia by being transphobic. You are necessarily concerned yourself with what the genitals of a baby looked like when a person was born. I don't know about anybody else here, but that sounds really, really perverted. It's a little creepy. Very creepy, actually. I mean, just think about that. You have somebody who's, 18 years old, and they present feminine, or maybe they're androgynous or whatever, and, your first concern is, well, I somehow realized that they were born with a penis, and so that means that this person's a boy. Why are you so concerned? Why are you so fixated on the genitals of a baby? You really should get some help. Okay? Seriously. If you are so dead set on what the genitals of babies looked like when that baby was born, because you're so concerned about making sure that they are remaining identifying with that particular genital presentation, there's something really wrong with you. Something really, really is not right up in your head. Now, I do want to say a couple of things. I am not one who supports, and I don't think anybody really seriously supports, 10-year-olds getting surgeries and things like that. And I've said this multiple times on the channel. I don't think children should be getting surgeries unless it's like a life or death matter. Mostly because, they're still actively developing. They shouldn't be, stopped for, being put under, and having their body cut into and this and that, and then, having to go through the recovery process. I mean, obviously, if their appendix is about to burst, yeah, you should intervene. But I'm not in favor of children getting surgery. And I think the youngest any gender affirmation surgeries happened, was like 16. Now, whether or not a 16-year-old is mature enough to make a decision like that is something that I feel has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And, when you get into those, upper teenage years, leading up to 18, people mature at different rates. Now, I think that I'm not qualified to make an assessment about anybody who's 16 years old, for example, as far as whether or not they're ready for gender confirmation surgery. Because I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I am a biologist who works on plants, mainly, as well as insects. Well, right now my career is more plant-based, plant-oriented, but I've definitely had more insect-oriented portions of my career. Um, I work with both because plants and insects are so intrinsically tied, but that's a little bit of a tangent. So, just think about that. I don't think that, children should be. First of all, children aren't getting bottom surgery or anything like that. Children are not getting that. Children generally aren't even getting HRT. Now, children might get hormone or puberty blockers that basically just stop the reproductive organs from sending chemical cues through the body at a certain age, for the purpose of, delaying puberty as that child becomes more aware of themselves. That is the general purpose of puberty blockers. Now, puberty blockers are not originally designed for the trans community. We know they're safe in humans because they're oftentimes used to treat medical conditions like certain cancers, as well as precocious puberty, which can happen if somebody has like a pituitary tumor or some other condition where their body basically goes into puberty at like age 6. That's what puberty blockers were originally made for. They do have some side effects, such as a little bit of growth stunting and calcium deficiency. These issues are easily corrected, and they're a lot better than a child suffering from gender dysphoria that could lead to their death. And so, I think that puberty blockers are completely appropriate for young children after a certain point. HRT and surgery would be later down the road. I think that, conservatives get so caught up in gender affirming care for kids being just surgeries because they don't actually understand what the trans community goes through and has to deal with. They don't understand that gender affirming care is stuff that's as simple as allowing the child to change their name, their pronouns, the way they dress, the way they keep their hair, blah blah blah. That's gender affirming care that doesn't involve surgery. Now, I am totally okay. I don't really care if a child wants to be called by a different name or if a child wants to go by a different pronoun. I'm just gonna be like, okay, fine, I'll call you this other thing, whatever. Get on with their day, and no, I'm not a big fan of kids. I don't want kids, and I kind of find kids annoying, but I think that people don't have a full grasp of what gender affirming care means, and they don't have a full grasp of what it means to just treat somebody like a normal human being. So, yeah, transphobes are perverted, they're uninformed, and they need to, really evaluate why they think the way they do, what they think exactly. I've heard all sorts of shit. A lot of people were targeted after the shooting in crap. What town? It wasn't Uvalde. It was after Uvalde. It was the that Christian school. I'm forgetting what town it was in, but whatever. Where there was a trans shooter, and whether or not trans people are more likely to be violent in that way than cis people is a different story altogether. Spoiler alert, the answer is no. But a lot of people in the trans community got targeted because of that particular event. And one of the problems is nobody in the cis community gets targeted that way. And I'll make another video about this particular thing, but I think when you're part of a minority group, nobody in your minority group can get away with anything, whereas people in the privileged majority group can get away with basically whatever they want. Now, the other thing that has happened a lot is there's been a lot of accusation of trans people targeting children for abusive behaviors. So, calling them groomers, calling them abusers, this and that. And I'm not saying that there's never been a trans person who's done something harmful to a child, but they did that harmful thing to a child because they're a predator, not because they're trans. So just keep that in mind. The real perverts are the transphobes. So, yeah. Thank you for listening, and have a good one. Be pedantic, demi-romantic, and stay away from that Atlantic.